Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We are recording this so that everyone's aware. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. This means a lot to have residents participating and inquiring and making comments and weighing in so that we can help get developments right. So this evening, we're going to be discussing what we've been calling the Link 2.0. And we have with us this evening staff members Johanna Neiden, our Community Development Director. Thank you so much, Johanna, for coming this evening. And we also have, we also have with us Melissa Klotz, who is our zoning administrator. Thank you, Melissa, for being here also. That's really helpful. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce the development team from Focus. Before I do that, last time I think it was pretty effective. What we did is we had developer presentation for about 10 minutes, then community participation for a few minutes, 5 minutes, and then sort of break it up in chunks so nobody has to wait until the very end of the meeting in case you have to go, but also so in case something was mentioned, you have an opportunity to discuss any given particular point right away as opposed to the end of the presentation. So with that, let's see. I'd like to introduce Tim Anderson. He's the CEO and founder of Focus, and he's here this evening to talk about this proposal and introduce the other folks on his team. Okay,
Great.
Tim.
Thanks so much, Councilmember Kelly, and thank you, Johanna and Melissa, and everybody that's gotten us to this point. First of all, we want to thank everybody participating tonight. We look forward to getting your input. And we are very much at the preliminary stages of this, but we are excited about the opportunity and the vision that we have that we'll share with you tonight. Our presentation is pretty succinct, and we should be able to get through it in 10 minutes or so, and then have questions at the end. So, I'm going to introduce our team, and starting with Executive Vice President Justin Pillay, who is in charge of our development group. And then after him will be our development manager, Vic Howell. And Justin, if you could take it away and go to the next slide.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Good evening, everyone. Again, appreciate the opportunity. With us tonight is a team of partners and consultants. I won't go through the trouble of introducing all of them, but you may hear them as you guys ask questions and so on. So with us, we have co-developer CA Ventures, who actually co-developed the Link building that's out there today with Focus. We have architects from BKL, who are the architect for the original Link and also the proposed project tonight. We have architects from Studio 222 Architects, which are the architects who are working with us on the garage portion of the development. And then we also have our zoning attorneys from Thompson Coburn on as well. Next slide, Vic. Just a brief, introduction to Focus. We've been in business since 1993. We are one of the more experienced developers in Evanston, and here's an example of some of our projects in Evanston. They range from neighborhood developments such as 1300 Central, and 811 Chicago, all the way up to Sherman Plaza in downtown. We've done everything from apartments to condominiums, and we also are involved in commercial development in the city as well. But these are just some representations of the work that we've done. Next page. To give you guys some context, which I'm sure most of you guys already know, in the kind of shaded in gray is the Link building as you guys know it today. Behind that is a parking lot that Sherman Garden Co-op owns. And that will be obviously a part of the discussion tonight. Across the street to the south is a property that Mr. Ipchen owns, which includes the Byline Bank and the former restaurant that was demolished about a year ago, I think. And then Sherman Garden Co-op is directly to the east. It should be noted, just for the sake of the discussion tonight, that currently Sherman Garden residents, in order to access their parking, they cross Emerson Street and walk down the alley to that parking lot behind the Link. And as a result of that, and in the plan development process as part of the first Link building, we got to know them well. And so it gives you some context as far as our involvement in this particular block. In addition, Mr. Ipchen was also the seller of the land for the original Link building. Next slide, Vic. So what we're here tonight to talk about, and Vic will get into the details, is I think interesting. And essentially, Mr. Ibchen approached us a while back about the property that has the byline and the restaurant on it, and asked us if we'd be interested in developing it. And at the time, we passed, partially because the site's relatively small, but also in knowing Sherman Garden Co-op and their needs, we felt that any sort of vertical development site would be challenging, both from politically, I suppose, but also they have a nice courtyard there, and certainly any height that would be built in that corner would impede on that courtyard as far as shadows and light and so on. And so we more or less passed on it. And as time went on, and the site wasn't put under contract by anyone, we started thinking about it a little bit more, like what could go on this site that would be somewhat benign and actually a benefit maybe to Sherman Garden. And one of the ideas that we had was this concept of potentially moving their parking from the current parking lot behind the Link building to this location, which would require a structure. And then in order to pay for that, essentially building an addition to the original Link building to the north. So that's the genesis of the concept. And Vic will go into the details now briefly. Go ahead, Vic.
All right, thank you, Justin. Again, I'm Vic Howell with Focus. I'll get through this relatively quickly as Councilmember Kelly want to open the floor for any discussion, any questions. So I'll go through both of the designs for both projects, just stressing, of course, again, as Tim said, this is very preliminary, very early in the stages, but we want to get any sort of input and feedback tonight as we move forward and look to apply for a PD. So jumping in, we'll talk about the Sherman Garden parking garage first. A quick slide just to reorient. As Justin mentioned, the site, it's highlighted in the orange line here, and then just a few photos of the site. For those of you that are familiar, this is from current day. So we will move to the next slide just to talk about the proposed development in plan. It's a parking garage, as Justin mentioned, 96 stalls. And we're effectively just utilizing the length of the site as it turns the corner. It is 2 levels of parking, 1 level going down and 1 level going up. So there's 2 entrances. The first entrance along Emerson Street is here on this short end. So a driver would drive in going south, and then there'd be a ramp down, a gentle ramp down to the end. The second entrance to the parking garage is along Elgin. It's noted here, so a driver would come in and then a gentle ramp up. What's also included within the garage for the Sherman Garden residents, of course, is some storage, maintenance storage, bike storage, just some other things, and of course, some accessible parking stalls. The other thing to note in the plan, of course, as Justin mentioned, there's a beautiful courtyard here. So we also, with that and the remaining space that we have on the lot, we want to add to that, do some things that complement it and work with it, but try to stay away from a taller structure. Of course, it's going to prevent light from getting in and shadows. A couple other things in the plan, we are looking to improve the streetscape. So we want to look closely at the landscaping and lighting along the street just to make sure we're enhancing what's already there. Zoom in a little bit just on the plans really quick, just so we could see. 2 plans are very similar. The one on the right is for the south entrance, and it's the upper level, we'll call it, of the garage going up. And then on the left, of course, is the entrance from Emerson ramping down. Total of 96 parking stalls as it's currently designed. We anticipate as we move forward and coordinate structurally and with the other elements, if that number has to fluctuate, the target that we had from day one was the 83 parking stalls that Sherman Garden currently has in their parking lot north of the link. So that's always been the goal. We're obviously a good number above that, but certainly we expect to be close to 96 as designed. Going to the elevations, to just say generally, our goal was to make sure we built something that was contextual, that truly fit in with the surroundings. In this case, it's directly adjacent to Sherman Garden, so the colors, the materials are going to relate very closely. We're going to try to match and make it fit in, of course, with the space. The other major thing of note is the height. As we mentioned, we have a height of about 19 feet 4 inches. trying to limit that height to effectively what the current byline bank is right now. So we're not increasing the height or density and anything with light and shadow going to courtyard, as I mentioned. This top elevation is that shorter elevation with the entrance coming into Emerson, or through Emerson, I should say. I'll skip down to this third elevation. This is the public facing elevation of the garage, where we really want to put our attention on, again, enhancing the streetscape. So that's where we'll be looking closely at the landscape and the lighting. We also will be providing an opportunity for some public art. We feel like it could be pretty powerful here on this corner as you go between Elgin and Benson. And then this middle elevation is the courtyard facing elevation. So what the Sherman Garden residents would be seeing. So again, looking to enhance and add on to what they already have as a beautiful courtyard on that side. I believe those are all the major things of note, but we can always circle back if there are any questions. I'll jump to the Link 2.0. So again, just to quickly reorient, we have the first Link building along Emerson. We have the alley that goes back to the current Sherman Garden parking garage. And then the site of the Link, proposed Link 2.0 is dashed in red. Sorry. A few more images, again, just for context, to look at current day Link 1.0 and its surroundings from the 4 cardinal direction corners. And then these 2 on the bottom show where that parking lot for Sherman Garden sits behind the Link currently. And you can see in context a few of the other surrounding buildings being Sherman Garden, of course, the Perlman building as well, the Purple Line tracks, and those things. So to get into the plans, I'll quickly go through these, but this plan, I should note, is rotating north from up to the right. So Emerson Street is on the left of the plan here. And so this is where we have this red space is the retail space, which is 7-Eleven. As you may know, the current entrance to Link 1.0 is in the corner of the building here. And then this is the alley that we talked about that goes north or right on this plan, and the current parking lot right behind it. So this is the proposed ground level plan. A few major points maybe just to get through quickly. Effectively, the addition to the Link is going to truly be an addition where we're connecting the 2 buildings. So the first connection point you'll find as you go through the lobby of the original building, as you go all the way down and north through, we're creating a secondary lobby for this Link 2.0. In terms of parking and circulation, what we have obviously remaining is the entrance to the Link parking garage. Currently, if you'll remember, and I'll just take back, the entrance to this parking garage currently on the alley side is approximately here, where I'm showing with my mouse. We would then, with this corridor, close that entrance to the parking garage and instead create a new entrance at the new Link 2.0 building, which is connected internally to the rest of the parking. So all of the parking for Link 2.0 is going to be on this ground level here, and it's directly connected to the Link 1.0. In essence, we're keeping 2 entrances to this garage and removing the 1 entrance to the Sherman Garden parking lot. Other things of note, of course, with this alley, we want to make sure we're beautifying this, similar to what we did on the first phase, continuing in that down the alley. And as we look at elevations, and we can talk with the architects as well about how we intend to continue that down the alley. So the second connection point, as I mentioned, is on the 2nd floor where we have parking here on the mezzanine level of the Link. There's going to be a secondary access point that connects. So all residents of both buildings would be able to utilize the amenities within either building by carrying through. And what we get on this floor is an outdoor terrace space and some indoor amenity space, but this is where our residential units start for Link 2.0. And they continue in this similar pattern. I'll jump to the typical floor plan as the units carry through in a similar fashion, all the way up to the top floor plan where we have another indoor amenity space with a rooftop outdoor terrace that would be able to capture views of the lake and everything looking east. Let's see if there's anything I didn't hit there. Okay. This is just a quick diagram to show the height The goal and intent of the link 2.0, which is on the right, is to match the height, certainly be no taller than the link 1.0. So if we have Emerson Street on the left side of the screen here, in the existing building, the intent, of course, is to keep the height the same. And then here, just kind of diagrammatically, of course, showing just those two access points that cover and cross between the two buildings. So looking at some of the elevations then quickly, again, very preliminary, and we can talk with the architects because they could speak to it a lot more eloquently than I. But maybe just to quickly show you what we're thinking for some of the views. This first view is from Emerson Street. So we have the link in the foreground with that alley going back. You can see the building itself is not going to be terribly visible from Emerson Street, but you do catch some views of it. And so we want to make sure, obviously, that it is a beautiful building, as you will see it from some other angles, and I'll show those now. This is a view directly east of the building, facing west. So no one would ever really see it from this angle, as that alley, since it's pretty narrow up against other buildings, you would never see all of this. But we intend to take the same materials of the link, which are this brick, this metal panel, and some glazing, and use those materials, but in a different way for this building. So the architects have been working through a few different considerations, a few different ways of expressing the building type. We'd love to get some feedback on that tonight. But part of that is making sure the alley itself is beautified with landscape, lighting, and at the pedestrian level, it's a comfortable experience. And then the rest of the building, of course, is using those same contextual materials. The third view we have here is if you were to continue north along the alley up to the end of link 2.0. Again, the same similar expression of materials across the building, but just another chance to see sort of what this building is going to start to wrap and look like. And then I will go to the last of the views we have here from basically above the purple line tracks and pulled back a little bit on the west side. Again, just to kind of contextually see how this building sits next to the original building and what it looks like from there. I'll pass back to Justin to go through a couple more slides.
Sure. So again, this is all very preliminary in nature, and we will be conducting traffic study and include parking and so on. But we wanted to give some context to our plans as it relates to parking, because we always know that's a concern. When we originally developed the first link building, we essentially had 0.69 parking stalls per unit, or roughly 170 parking stalls that were built as part of that building. After we leased up that building and it was stabilized, we found that people aren't taking parking, which is both a good thing, I suppose, from a sustainability and other reasons, but clearly it's not great for our bottom line because we built all this parking and we're not getting any revenue for it. So we went back to the city in March of 2021 and we said, hey, can we potentially use some of this parking and offer it to the public? And at that time, we were able to essentially get the plan development for the original building modified to allow us to offer 85 parking stalls to the public. Today, and this, I know the numbers get confusing, I'm gonna try to keep it simple, but right now we don't have any public parking spots per se being leased. We have 60 parking spots being utilized right now by residents, which is essentially a 0.25 parking spot per unit ratio. So obviously we have a lot of excess parking right now. So as part of this plan of doing this addition, we will add additional parking. And this bottom part that's in gray essentially shows that if you add up all the parking that we have, plus the parking that we are showing on the addition, we'll have 232 stalls and 0.49 parking stalls per unit. Now, remember, I just said currently we're utilizing 0.25. So we anticipate if this were to move forward as planned, we could have upwards of 70 to 80 parking spots available in excess that we won't be using. And why are we doing that? Because we want some contingency. We understand that we can't park exactly down to the minimum. So just being transparent here, how parking is working right now, but we feel very much covered in parking that we will have enough with how it's drawn today. Next slide, Vic. Community impact. So obviously, as we looked at doing this project, we have to provide some reasons or rationale of why this is good, other than, we would like to develop a building. But first one, Vic, go ahead. One of the things that, and this is true, and I think some of the Sherman Gardens folks can speak to this, we do feel like this plan does support one of the most affordable housing options in downtown Evanston. I mean, this, I think, is a creative solution to help Sherman Gardens. And certainly they are workforce housing at its root. So we feel good about that. The second one is that we have committed to providing the 10% that affordable housing that's required all on site. We won't be buying out of it with the fee in lieu option. The next thing, Vic. One of the interesting things is that site that's behind the existing link right now is basically an undevelopable site. It doesn't have street access. So, but for a creative idea like this, that site will always be a parking lot paying very little in taxes, because there's really no ability to develop it but for an addition to the link. So we think it's a unique opportunity to harness the value for the community of that property. As Vic mentioned, and we'd want input on this, but we think there's an opportunity for some meaningful public art, and that intersection certainly is a highlight, as a gateway per se into Evanston. So we think that could be interesting. All parking for both Sherman Gardens and the link would all be off-site and closed in the garage, which we think is a nice way of dealing with parking. Certainly, there's some concern that the Foster Purple Line station may become obsolete at some point if ridership continues to dwindle. And so there is an argument, this is clearly a TOD development, but that its proximity to the Purple Line is helpful in that people utilize it. And I think you can tell from our parking ratios that people are using it. So we think that's a positive. The first link building was LEED Silver, sustainable construction and design, and we anticipate and commit to doing that on the second building as well. And then the last one, clearly, if we're able to harness this value on this site behind the link 1.0, we think that's a benefit to the community, and we estimate that the tax revenue generated above and beyond what's already there would be to the tune of $1.16 million roughly. So those are some of the impacts, and obviously there may be more, but that's what we have tonight. So in conclusion, I think that's the end of our presentation. Hopefully it didn't run over 10 minutes too much, and we look forward to hearing you guys' feedback.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take questions and comments. Let's see, if I'm missing, okay, how about Alan? Alan?
Got it. Okay, you had to unmute the mic. Hello, my name is Alan Fierstein. I'm the president of the Sherman Garden Association. We have a lot of members here tonight. I was looking over all the images, so I'm glad to see we have a good turnout. I just wanted to share that this is vital. Everybody I've talked to in our complex has realized this is very critical. For us, this parking structure is extremely critical because, as shared, anything else would be extremely detrimental to our buildings, our courtyard, and our community. So I'm really glad that this concept is being developed, and I just wanted to let you know that we hope that you can iron out all the details and that we can make this happen. Okay.
Great, thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Sarah Vanderwicken?
Yeah, thank you so much. What is the bedroom configuration of the new units? How many 1, 2, and possibly 3 bedrooms are there?
Great question.
Councilmember Kelly, would you like us to answer those questions now?
Oh, yes, if you would, let's say, yeah, I think it's best to go ahead and answer, if you can succinctly, so we can keep, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'll pass it to Angela. Thanks for stepping in. Angela,
No problem.
with PKO Architects. Go for it, Angela.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. We're really excited about this extension, and we're really proud of a link as it stands. So currently, as it's planned, the unit mix is looking at about 27% studios and 27% 1 beds, 23% 2 beds, and 23% 3 beds.
Really? And would that be evenly spread among that would be the same proportions for the affordable units?
Yes.
Oh, that's really very good to know. That's it. And what about my pet thought for the garage as a Sherman Garden resident is a rooftop garden. Is that in the works, or has that been determined to not be feasible?
I could speak to that. What we've committed to is putting a roof membrane up there. An actual rooftop garden is not in the works right now, and the reason being is a lot of exiting and life safety issues with that aren't contemplated. But yeah, so that's where we stand today.
What does a membrane mean?
Like a typical roof, like you would have on the top of your building now. It's watertight essentially, but it's not a green roof up there per se.
Okay, and then there's been an issue about parking for the HACC addition at the corner. And have you been in discussion with, and are there any agreements with the HACC to provide some of the excess parking to them?
So my understanding, and this, anyone can jump in here, is they approached CA Ventures, our partner, about the excess parking we have existing right now. But we knew that this potential plan was coming down the path, so we never committed to being able to provide them any excess parking. To the extent that we have excess parking, if this project is approved, which we anticipate there will be, certainly we'd love to work with anybody that would like to lease it, because we would charge money obviously for that parking. So
Right.
that's where we stand today.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Great questions. I just wanted to dovetail on the rooftop, the membrane. I do think that part of our downtown is a neat, like, I love Sherman Gardens. I love everything about Sherman Gardens, the open space, the design, the people. But behind it could use some touches to improve sort of that stretch there. So if there is, I don't know, what a membrane involves, but if there's any way, I would say just to look, I agree with Sarah that if there's some way that we can discuss or really look at creating some sort of a rooftop terrace, or at least so that it's structured in such a way that that can happen going forward, that would be a really important. So just to create a little more life when you're looking at that area from the west. So I agree. I think that would be just an enormous benefit to that part of town. Okay, let's see. Judy? Great.
Yeah. I noticed in the drawing that one of the buildings looked like it was on stilts. Is there a reason for that?
Sure. So basically, is that okay if I take this one, Vic? You're good with that?
Yeah, please go for it.
Yeah, so it looks like that, but basically what's happening is that just like on the existing Link building, the parking is exposed to the exterior. So what you're seeing as stilts is actually the columns of the structure coming down above, and the parking is not enclosed. So the renderings are super early and sketch format, so maybe they're a bit undersized, and but they are just the columns of the structure above coming into the parking garage.
Okay, so eventually it will look just like the other one, totally equal, no stilt appearance.
It will look just like the existing. Well, I mean, we're architecturally doing a little bit of a different expression on the facade, but that exposed parking area will look exactly how Link 1.0 exposed parking area looks.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Great. Let's see, Keith Johnson.
I just have to unmute myself here. I had a couple of points. Yes, I'm one of the trustees at Sherman Garden Apartment Trust. And I'm expressing my personal opinion, not those of the complex, of course. I believe that the use of our parking space to build a building is a definite advantage for the city of Evanston, providing tax income. I'm somewhat surprised to hear about the origins of this, because there seems to be an alternative which would be to exchange the parking lot to the focus group for the right to park our cars in the Focus 1 and 2 building where there is an excess of parking spaces available. And that would be a very simplified type of business compared with the complexity of what is being proposed with building a parking garage in exchange for the right to build a apartment building on our parking space. So my question is basically to the focus group, have you considered an alternative to building a parking garage on the Ipsgen property and perhaps having a park or some other low structure use of that space directly to the west of Sherman Gardens? And it would seem to be so much simpler and equally effective, at least from my standpoint. And thank you for answering.
Thank you so much, Keith, for bringing that up. I think that's a really, really important and idea to consider. So I don't know if someone from Focus would like to, if you haven't yet pondered that and you want to circle back on that, but I would also, I would love that if you could also consider what Mr. Johnson is proposing.
Yeah, I can take that. We haven't considered it closely. I think my initial concern is that the amount of the 83 stalls that they have now, we don't, I believe, have 83 stalls currently that we could give them. So there would be a little juggling or a shortfall in parking, certainly while construction and so on was happening. So it's a little bit more complicated than that. And I would say in addition to that, I know some of the folks that we've talked to at Sherman Gardens are way more excited about the parking being adjacent and connected to their property as opposed to having to continue to cross the street. So while I may be negotiating against myself right now, that's the other thing that comes up.
Okay, or maybe some permutation whereby some of it's open space. I'm just kind of dovetailing off of what Keith Johnson proposed.
No, I think it's an interesting idea. I haven't given it a ton of thought, Councilmember Kelly.
Okay, yeah, and I understand absolutely the tremendous value of being able to park adjacent to Sherman Gardens. But again, maybe it's worth some looking into the option of creating a little more open space in combination with parking, adjacent parking. Just great, thank you so much. Tina.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We do.
Okay. A few questions. About the affordable units, what is the AMI for your affordable units?
I think he said 60%.
60%. Okay, and so would you be taking any HUD vouchers?
We would not, no.
Okay. And so I know that Angela had given the percentage of the units. Could you tell me how many out of the 19 affordable units, what is the makeup of the 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom or 3 bedrooms, the unit makeup for that?
Yeah, it would be similar, would be the same mix or ratio of units. So as Angela mentioned, I don't have the specific number that we have split because this is preliminary, but if we're looking at that 27% studio, 27% 1 bed, 23% 2 bed, 23% 3 bed, those 19 units would be split in approximately the same ratio, if that makes sense.
Okay, and so what are the rents, approximate rents for the units for the market rate?
Yep. The expected rents in today's world, and obviously none of this is final, we would anticipate the studio units would probably rent somewhere between $1,700 to $1,800 a month. The affordable rent using HUD's 60% AMI limits would be about $979 is the rate they gave. Looking at the one beds, we're looking at something between around $2,300, $2,400 for market rate, about $1,050 for the affordable. Going to two beds, $3,200 approximately for the two-bed unit, I believe is correct. If someone from CA can correct me if I'm misstating this, but I believe it's $3,200, and then the affordable, I know for a fact, is $1,258. And then for the three beds, the number I have is about $4,100, $4,200, and then the affordable for a fact is $1,454.
Okay, thanks. Also, what is your current occupancy rate at the link number 1?
I can get, I know it's fully stabilized. If I know DeWarren was on from CA, I don't want to misstate current figures if we have someone that knows it exactly.
Hey, Vic, I think it's between 98 and 99% right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a full building. Yep. Thanks, DeWarren.
All right. So also, what is your build out time and how is that going to coincide with the HACC unit? What if everything goes as planned? When do you plan on starting and the build out time with the HACC unit?
So I can speak to what we would like to do and anticipate. I don't know exactly how it correlates with Cook County's schedule, just not knowing it, but I can say our intention, if everything went as we would like it to and on schedule, we would be able to start construction in the first quarter of 2023 of next year, and then be able to be complete with about 16 to 20 month construction schedule somewhere in the summer or early fall, hopefully of 2024. So about a year and a half from when we start.
Okay, just a couple of more questions.
These are great questions, by the way. Thank you.
So what, obviously, I'm sorry, I missed the number of units. How many units total?
Yeah, I realized I actually didn't state the exact number. So it's 228 right now is what we're looking at in these preliminary plans. And I'll stress the word preliminary again.
And the height, I'm sorry, I missed that.
The height is going to be the same as the existing Link 1.0 building. So that existing building is at 103 feet.
And how many stories?
It's 9 stories. The original building is 9 stories. So we would do the same here with a mezzanine.
All right. And so obviously, all of these new buildings, yours and the current one and the HACC coming up, this will take a lot of toll on the water and sewer and the infrastructure. How do you plan to rectify this, what you're doing, this new building and all adjacent to these other new buildings? How will you contribute to fixing this problem? Because obviously they're going to have to put some kind of new water and sewer. I know they just did a lot of water and sewer on Emerson, but the streets are not as well as they should be on Emerson. And it seems like when developments come, they leave the city to do the cleanup of new infrastructure and roads and stuff. So how will you help with this?
Yeah, I think
Tina.
I'll take this one, Vic. Yeah, I think that's a good question, certainly. I mean, we haven't had an opportunity to even sit down with staff or the city to even discuss some of those issues. I mean, I anticipate that the infrastructure, water and sewer, the capacity is there, but we frankly haven't done that due diligence yet because this is our first meeting with the community. But for example, on the first building, we did repaving, we did sidewalks. It was things that we had to do as part of the project. So there's definitely, to your point, there is going to be some improvements that will be required, but I can't speak to what those are today.
Well, I hope that the council members, when your project does come up, will consider that. And also, we have old traffic lights there at that intersection. And it seemed like that with your new development, you could contribute to getting new lights. I just have one more thing, and then I'll let other people talk. It was very critical last time that you built your building. We had a big safety issue, and I know that at least one person died with the crane accident. How will you ensure that you will have much better safety that could have harmed many more people at the intersection there? Please tell me how you will improve that this time.
Thank you.
Want me to take that one, Tim, or do you want to?
I could speak to that a little bit. It's a really good question. I think it's a fair question. We have been in business for next month 29 years. In that period of time, those are the first serious injuries we've ever had on the job site, and one death and one serious injury. It was tragic. And there was some problems with the hoisting and for instance, when OSHA came out after the accident, they did not cite us for one violation, but it was the hoisting process that resulted in the event happening. So we're very aware of that, and we will definitely make sure that we increase our vigilance. And we do every month, we do a safety audit with a person that comes out on a surprise inspection on every one of our sites. And we actually assess what penalties would be involved if there were any violations. And we have a good safety record. That was just a tragic incident that happened. So I will assure you that we will do everything we can to make sure that doesn't ever, not just this job, but ever get replicated. And we're dedicated to that, and we will take those precautions as you indicated to really look at that for this site as well. So
all right, thank you, because that was I lived down the street and I was on the scene shortly afterwards. And not only that, it takes away a lot of our fire and police have to attend to emergencies at these sites. And it seems like that maybe going forward that the city will require the more safety procedures, so we will not be taxed on our fire and police. Really, council member, let me slip in with just one last question. I would like to know, how will you be recruiting fair minority workers, female and minority people on this project? When I've seen your project in the last time, it was very white. So I would like to know, how will you be recruiting for a fair and equitable hiring process?
Thank you.
Is that?
you want to answer that, Justin, or you want me to?
Yeah, I was confused. I thought the question was aimed towards Councilmember Kelly. On the first project, we did commit in the plan development to minority hiring. So that's not something new to us, and something I think we certainly would work with the city on. But again, I mean, in the context of everything, right? Everyone tonight's has ideas and so on. So we have to kind of listen and gather all this stuff and filter it and work through it. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, those are great questions, Tina. Thank you. I would also ask, I appreciate and I trust that you are going to, take those precautions and increase vigilance. I guess I think it would be reassuring maybe if we we'll have another community meeting to, how you would increase that vigilance, not just increase it, just what measures will be taken additionally to avoid such a tragedy in the future. So I guess concrete measures would be great to hear.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we could, as we talk about what the actual structural system we're using, we used a hybrid system on that project. We would not be using that system here. It was the same project used for the Maple Avenue apartment building.
What does that mean? I'm sorry. What does that mean to use a
It was a
hybrid?
combination of steel beams and columns and precast and poured in place concrete. They all worked together. And it was the same system that was used down at Maple apartment building at Maple and Davis. And we would not be using that system again. So I think when we get to the point of a logistics plan, we can sit down with staff and with you, Councilmember Kelly, and anybody else that we want to, and show you how our logistics plan is working and how we would maintain a safe site.
Great. And I would also second that if we can talk maybe offline staff about what we can do in the city to ensure that we are monitoring and ensuring that safety measures are in place on construction developments too, that would be great. And also regarding the minority, and I would add local too, I don't know exactly how that works in terms of including recruiting for minority as well as local workers for this project. So, and you don't have to answer now, but yes.
I was just going to add to the point, inspectors visit job sites, like the large job sites, a couple times a week, weekly, depending on the activity, and monitor general conditions, fencing, other things. And I believe the focus team can speak to OSHA visits sites as well. So that they don't just visit sites when things go bad, they visit sites all the time. So OSHA takes and maintains many of the safety measures, but we maintain the environment to make sure that projects are staying on the site. And they're following the construction management plan, which outlines many of these aspects of safety and delivery and use of the roadways to get to the construction site. And all of those documents for the construction management plan would be posted on the city's website, so anyone can look and see how this plan comes together.
Great. I guess I just always mean reflection, given that there was a tragedy as a city. Is there anything that we can do? That's great though. Thank you. I appreciate hearing.
And our inspectors were on site that day too, and that was a very difficult day for the city as well. So
right. So okay, let's see, Eva.
Yes, thank you for this meeting and putting it together, everyone. I really very much appreciate it. And I have one question and I also have a comment. I'm going to start with a comment. When the demolition of the restaurant occurred and that sort of thing, I had a lot of anxiety because you have this empty lot and what's going to go there. We lived in Wicker Park for quite a while. We saw a lot of overbuilding, infilling, things getting too big for the area. And when I heard that this proposal for the parking facility opening up, I was quite relieved that would be going in. It wouldn't be some sort of restaurant with a lot of traffic and all the other things that happen with restaurants. It wasn't going to be a large building. I thought that was very nice. And I'm kind of a booster on this whole thing. The big question I have, and maybe it's a little bit too soon or into the weeds, is electricity for electric cars. Is that going to be built in with an adequate amount, because there's going to be more and more electric cars going forward. And I'm very interested in seeing that we have that.
Yeah, I can speak to that quickly. We definitely agree, and we see the trends with electrical vehicles and vehicle charging stations. We did include 2 within the first building, so we would certainly look at the utilization there and use that to inform how we proceed with the next building. Certainly something that we would have on the list to consider, since we obviously did it for the first building as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Let's see. Coleman.
Yeah. My curiosity. Do you know about what percentage of the first link to is Northwestern students, and what percentage you think might be going into the new building?
That is a property management question that I again would turn to Duarn with CA, unless you don't have the current information, Duarn. I don't want to give any wrong information there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the specific metrics on the percentages at link one, but we can follow up on that.
Okay, was just wondering.
Okay, Lisa Noble.
Oh, go ahead, Lucy.
Hi, my name is Sherry Bretzkis. I'm a resident at Sherman Gardens. And one of the really positive things I hear about the possibility of this parking structure is the revenue that will come into the city. So for that, I'm excited as a possibility. And the rest of all of my thoughts about it are really quite selfish in terms of for myself personally and for Sherman Gardens. And so I live at Sherman Gardens because it's affordable for me. And I'm very concerned. I have some concerns and they are not really for you to answer, but I want them on the record. I'm wondering what the difference will be for us tax-wise in the short term and possibly the long term. I have concerns about safety with having a structure like that is open for people to come in and out of in terms of drug dealing, in terms of just general safety for people, having access, homeless people sleeping in a structure. I mean, I know that happens in the staircase going up to the Maple Avenue parking area. I'm concerned about fumes from the vehicles right there on our courtyard where our patio is and where people tend to congregate to socialize. I've also done a little bit of research on the kind of maintenance that needs to happen. So Focus will do the initial building. And then what I know every 10 years or so that it needs to be resurfaced and those sort of issues. And what that will do to our the cost of our assessment on a monthly basis if there is additional costs that go up. And among the various co-ops in Evanston currently, we are known for having the very most highest association charges every month. So if we get taxed differently because this structure is on this property, which is now street facing as opposed to being on an alley, what the long-term ramifications. And then the final concern I have is when Focus was being built, we were assured that the front of the building would be U-shaped with a center garden so that there would be a significant green space, and that never transpired. So I see from your photographs that there are pictures with some greenery around the building that currently exists. But to tell you the truth, it is so unnoticeable that I really can't picture it. When I go out tomorrow, I'll look and see, but it is essentially very, very marginal. And I don't think this is critical for Sherman Gardens. As one of my neighbors had stated, I don't think it's critical. I think that what we have is adequate, functional, low maintenance. And granted, there is another, 100 steps that somebody has to take to get from the parking lot to our building. Then maybe if it's placed where you are planning this possible garage, but I don't think it's critical.
Thank you for bringing that that other point of view to this discussion. I think that's so important. I would just also like to comment, also just to keep, since this is so preliminary, to consider, and of course Sherman Gardens people will weigh in, an open, in terms of safety, airflow, everything involved, like having an open space parking lot, maybe combined with green space, just to keep that space as amenable and inviting and healthy and safe as possible, to consider also that option.
Yeah, if I may, Councilmember Kelly, I won't address all the concerns because we have been talking to representatives about taxes and some of those concerns. And I think we have good answers at the appropriate time for all that. But as far as the safety matter goes, this garage is completely secure. So there's no opportunity for anyone other than the Sherman Garden residents to enter this garage. There would be secure door at the courtyard. The garage doors would be secured with, either openers or some other technology. So this is not a situation where it's a wide open garage by any means. It'd be, as secure, if not more so, than their current parking situation. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Louise Keeley? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I had one other comment.
I'm sorry,
there
what
has
is your
been-
name again? because
Jerry
it's-
Brutzkis. Sherry
Jerry?
Brutzkis.
Oh, sorry, Councilman Kelly. She's at my place. We're zooming it together on my iPad. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So one other concern I had, Eva had mentioned the flow of traffic if we had a restaurant there. However, we're talking about having close to 100 parking spaces with people going in an area where there's a lot of traffic. And there have been times between 4 and 6 o'clock that I have gone out and from Emerson until Elgin, which is all of a city block. It's taken me sometimes 4, 5, or 6 light changes to get through because traffic is so backed up between people in line to get a pizza at Lou Malnati's to just a tremendous amount of traffic coming through there. And so, yeah, it's not a restaurant, but the flow of traffic through there is very difficult between people leaving Northwestern and cutting through in various ways and in and out of downtown with our restaurants, et cetera. So as I said, there have been times that it's taken me 4, 5, and 6 stoplight changes to get through a city block on Sherman Avenue from Emerson to Elgin.
Absolutely. No, I know that is an issue.
And we're talking about having another 200 some apartments with a portion of those people having more vehicles. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And the traffic down Emerson is horrendous. Sometimes you cannot even cross Maple going west because it's backed up all the way to from Green Bay Road.
So I would like to just, on that note also, and Johanna, maybe you can talk about it. I know the city has been talking about, doing our own independent traffic studies. I really hope that that happens soon. And it's not to say that folks at Focus wouldn't do a great job. I'm not trying to suggest that at all, but I do think it's important for the residents to know that our city is also conducting our own assessment.
That's a great reminder and a good information, and Focus is aware of this. So for everybody else, the city council discussed creating a pathway for the city to define the way in which traffic studies, multimodal analysis is done for different developments. Because currently our code just speaks to requiring a traffic circulation study for these kinds of developments. And then the parameters are generally set by the developer, and they provide us information, and our city's engineering staff and planners review it and ask comments. And so it's not always an apples to apples for each development. So the current council asked the staff to investigate the ability for the city to procure those services with the developer looking at working with the city selected consultant on this. So we issued an RFP for it. We've received the responses back, and we're going to return for a discussion of the responses and some direction on next steps in the end of this month at February 28th meeting. But the Focus development is going to work with us on some of the parameters that we set in that RFP and work to put their traffic analysis more in line with what we've been asking for. So that's that way we have a better say in what the prescribing what gets produced there.
Great. Okay, let's see, Tricia Connolly.
Hello, I just wanted to make a couple of comments and ask a question. In regard to the link, the original building, I seem to remember at the point that was being built, Evanston had several other large projects going on in the city, and that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. So I would just say that I think it's really important that the city be very sensitive to what's going through the pipeline and, dates of which these things are starting to break ground. So that, the safety issues can be addressed and we have enough staff to actually be really monitoring it well. And then my question is, for Focus, do you use union labor? Are you a union shop?
Yeah, this project, it would be a union project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't know, it'd be great to see how Johanna, sometime maybe we can, at a ward meeting, understand how the city monitors the total number of construction and how we try to stagger that so that the impact is minimize the negative impact for residents and also in terms of staffing. Let's see, Jane Claire Danielson. Jane? How about Pat Rolfs?
You
I'm
missed
unmuted
Louise
now.
Keeley.
I'm sorry?
You missed Louise Keeley.
Louise Keeley. I'm sorry, I thought I called Louise Keeley. I apologize. Sorry. Louise
Hi,
Keeley.
yeah, you called me and then I think Sherry had one more question. So I'm also a Sherman Gardens resident. And my question is, I think for Focus, based on what you reported earlier, there'll be 228 units and you quoted some of the market prices, and I know some of it will be affordable housing, but the revenue from the rent should be in, kind of 4 to 5 million, give or take, accounting for the affordable housing. So my question is, how far along are you in negotiating the agreement with the trustees, including the implicit price of or explicit price of the swap of the properties?
We have a letter of intent with the Sherman Garden Co-op, and if the entity is not correct, I apologize. And it contemplates basically a land swap, a garage for the land. We haven't gotten into the specifics of like dollars amount because it's right now it's a pretty simple transaction in the sense of it's a 96 roughly spot parking garage in exchange for an 83 spot parking lot. So that's where we're at today. And we have drafted a formal contract, which I believe counsel for Sherman Garden is reviewing right now, but I'd prefer that someone from Sherman Garden speak to that process right now because I'm not as familiar with where that's at as they would be.
Can I just make one comment about that? It's not it actually links back to Sherry's point about property taxes and property values, because there could be capital gains implications of the swap. But the other thing on the flip side for Sherman Gardens, we're not property developers and you guys are, and you guys do this every day. And it's not a swap for 83 parking spots for a 96 spot parking garage. You guys are going to be building a 9-story apartment building on that property. And so that property is very valuable to you. And my concern is twofold. Number one, that there are not property tax implications for us if we can avoid them. But number two, and perhaps more importantly, in the long run, that this is a fair market value exchange, because it's not clear to me that it is an even swap for both of those reasons. So I just want to be on the record having said that for you and for our trustees and for our council member.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Really appreciate those comments. Those are really important questions and observations. And would someone from one of the trustees like to talk about, I assume, has the LOI and the contract been shared with all the members? I don't know how this works at Sherman Gardens.
I believe Diane's trying to speak right now, but she's on mute.
You're muted, Diane.
Okay, sorry about that. We haven't shared the legal documents yet with the residents. There really is no reason to, because it's just a letter of intent. We haven't got a contract yet for the land swap. Our attorney is working with their attorney, and that may come up and get finalized sometime in the near future, but at this point, it's not finalized. So there really is nothing to share yet. All of this information is also going in my brain and on my notepad, and we will be making some modifications to, what we started out thinking was possible. We'll just keep moving and changing and going with the flow and trying to get the best deal for Sherman Gardens, obviously, that we can. So it's a negotiation. We're working on it. I don't know what else to say. Was there any other part of the question that I ignored?
Louise?
No, that's it. I just wanted to understand how far along we're.
I appreciate actually, Louise, that you brought up the value of our parking lot, because we do need to have some agreement on that with Focus, and that will be part of the negotiations. So we're aware, and we'll keep working.
Great. Jane Claire Danielson?
Yep, I'm here. I had several comments in regards to safety. With the last Link building that they built across the street, they were working at night. And I know I personally saw a worker almost get blown off of the site into the garden. Could we please not have people working at night, particularly in high wind conditions? Also, if we're going to have that much traffic increased, I walk on that alley just about every day, and it's not just Link, it's also the nursing home. But the traffic can be pretty bad. I think the easiest way to handle it is to put a few sleeping policemen in there to slow down the traffic. And some lights would help too. I also worry about the paper trail. As a resident, this is a huge asset that we're dealing with. And we haven't seen a single letter, a piece of information, so we cannot make an informed decision whether we want to do this or not. And I don't think just saying, here's the paper, we're going to do it, is not a good idea.
Jane, you're at Sherman Gardens?
Yes, I am.
Jane, we won't do anything like what you're saying. We will come to you just like we did when we started this process, with a survey and ask the questions that you need to answer before we go ahead and sign anything. Okay? So don't worry about us making decisions without talking to our residents. We know where our responsibility lies, and we are a co-op for a reason. We will cooperate with the residents. We all cooperate with each other. Okay, so don't worry about that. We're not going to pull something over on you.
Would it be possible to restrict their working hours to daylight hours?
I imagine. Isn't that a city
The
code
city has
thing?
the city has operating construction hours. So
Right.
If there were exceptions to that, that would have had to have been approved by the city. And we do that sometimes on emergency basis, or because something needs to be addressed in a certain timely manner. But we do that only after we've also consulted with the ward alderman. So the ward alderman would have been consulted in that instance. So in this case, Councilmember Kelly would be asked if based on the situation, and then she would give us guidance on that.
Right. So thank you so much, Jane. I appreciate that. Yes, I would absolutely not expect to have construction in the evenings, but I think that also is in line with what I brought up before about ensuring that that we don't have too many construction projects going on at once at the city, so that there's no, at any rate, so that we're able to stagger enough so that we can have staff on site during the day and whenever necessary, and the same with any construction project, so that the calendar is not set up in such a way that it's somehow imperative to work in the evenings. Absolutely. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And all those things, I think, it's not enough just to say it here. Things that like that are important for safety, I would like to see that also somehow in writing, some of these concerns that were expressed, so that going forward, we know we didn't just say, okay, we'll do that, but we can have a document to stick to. And let's see, Jim Edgren.
Yes, thank you very much for all this. I got a concern about electric chargers in the garage. In 10 years, approximately 50% of the cars will be electric. So we're gonna need to make sure we have enough of that. So we have to look towards the future. And so I just wanna make sure we're putting in electrical structure for that to support that amount of electricity. The other thing too is bike spaces. I'd like to make sure we have plenty of bike spaces available there. There are some people who can't carry their bikes up out of the basement storage rooms. So if we have 20, 30, maybe more bike spaces, that would be good. And I want to speak out in opposition to the idea of a green roof. The green roof would require that we build an elaborate, strong structure that could hold the green roof, as well as hold people up there to maintain and take care of the green roof. That'd be an entire other thing that's going to add quite a bit of expense to the whole thing. You also have to build a set of stairs going up there, and then you have to build some sort of retaining wall around that. That would mean we'd have to change the height of the structure going forward. So right now, I'd be happy with a plain old regular roof. That's all I got for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, I'm currently in the Perlman building. I'm wondering, I heard them mention January 23 as a possible start date for the building with Sherman Gardens. When is ours supposed to start, and how will that interact with that one?
So I'm going to let, I don't know, Johanna, there's not a date yet, correct, for the Perlman.
Correct. We don't have building plans to review yet, construction drawings. So at least not that I'm aware of, unless they've come in the past few days. But so there's at least usually a month or so to review those, and they'd have to provide a construction management plan as well that gives an outline. I'll send the link in a minute in the chat to a different kind of a construction management plan for a different building, if you want to see what those sorts of plans look like.
Sure, thank you.
Johanna, have construction hours always been as early as 7? Is that the way it's always been, 7 to 7?
That is the way it's always been, yes.
Okay, let's see. Any other comments? Tina?
Yeah, hi. I have a couple of, I have a follow-up to saying that you're going to use union workers. Not any feeling either way about that. But traditionally, on the projects in the last 10 years, let's say, and this is something that the city council will have to really pay attention to. So you talk about Evanston hiring, always with Robert Crown and many other projects that have come through. They say we don't have enough minority union workers here, and they can't find any. So traditionally it's been 10% or whatever the percentage. Johanna may be able to answer that. So then they come to the MWEBE committee and say we can't find any and whatever. Robert Crown was supposed to pay $500,000 penalty for not having enough workers, minority workers. Is there some kind of penalty? It doesn't seem like this is being enforced. And then what is the city doing to educate or train minorities to get some of these jobs? I don't know who is working where exactly, but just once again, I live down the street and pass by the site very frequently, almost daily. And I did not see any Black people working. So what is the city doing to make sure that there's not an excuse, there's not a pass for minority workers working on these projects, not just this project, but all projects, because it seems like it's just a big pass, no female workers, no minority workers. What's happening? Why are people getting a pass here?
Thank you so much, Tina. And I know, because I did study the Robert Crown, I know that was part of the deal that we took the city agreed to go with a firm that was approximately $10 million more than the one that was most highly rated. And they said that the rationale for going and deciding to spend $10 million more was because they thought they were more committed to hiring, and then they didn't. You're absolutely right. And they did get fined, but I don't believe that fine was ever acted on. So I have concerns about that also.
The council excused it. I have two more things.
That was before the old council.
Okay, not you, not you. What is the price of the parking? What is the price for the parking for the public, and what is the price for the parking for the residents?
Okay, thank you. Two questions there. And I only mentioned the Robert Crown one because Tina brought it up, but I think that was part of sort of the arrangement with agreeing to pay such an exorbitant price tag for that. So Johanna, can you speak to, like, in a situation like this, in terms of minority or local hiring, is there a requirement? Is that something that we would work into with public benefits?
We have worked that into public benefits in the past for different developments, depending on the proposals we've gotten. We have staff that's in different departments, not in the community development department, that would work with the developer, whether we have a local hiring list or other, depending on what trades. I don't know if you've ever met Sharon Johnson, she did this work for the city. We have other staff that has picked up some of that portfolio since her departure in the summer, but we would connect to, we've built our workforce development team a lot in the past few years. So that would be something, if that was included in a public benefit, we could partner and help. And then if there was requirements, we would then monitor them before we issued a final certificate of occupancy, in making sure that they had completed those, whatever they had committed to doing.
Okay, so that would just be, there's no automatic, like for construction, we don't have any, there's nothing in our code. It would only be as part of a negotiated sort of agreement for benefit. Okay. And then parking, Tina had a question. So I don't know if you want to speak to either of those points, focus.
Yeah, Tina, was the question, you mentioned public and private. Are you saying just the current public use of the public stalls at the link?
Well, how much do you charge? And maybe it'll be a different price for the link 2.0, but what is the cost for a resident to have parking at the building? And what I thought I heard you say that you wanted to make some of your parking public parking. Is that I didn't hear that right?
So what we would do is similar to what we did at the first link building, if this project moves forward as planned. And again, if we do find after the building is fully stabilized that there is excess parking, we would go back to the city and request that a certain number of parking stalls be allowed to be used for public use. So there's nothing in the current proposed development would include public parking as a statement. To your question on what the current public parking rates would be, there are currently no agreements in place for those 85 stalls that are in the existing building. We anticipate, I mean, they would be similar to the rates of other parking garages nearby in downtown Evanston. So there's no specific number set. So I don't necessarily have an answer, but hopefully that answers that question.
I can give you the answer. I think the current going rate is around $150. It depends on if it's exposed. There's some parking at the current length that's actually more enclosed, you know, like protected from the elements. So 150 is a fair number on average.
That's what the residents pay? That's what the residents pay?
I think across the board, if you were to average it, that would be roughly what they pay. And we can get more detail around that.
Okay, and I had another question and I forgot. Well, anyway, I just, you know, it's so many, I know people say about the units for parking and nobody's parking and everybody's taking the train and so forth. But some people do not want to pay for the parking and they just park on the street, which just blocks up the people that live here street parking. So when moving forward, I hope that the city takes note of that, because I see it happening. I'm close to E2, and a lot of E2 people do not want to pay $195 a month, so they park on the street.
Yeah,
So
can you address?
I could speak to that. If in a neighborhood parking district, which we have quite a few in this area, where you get a neighborhood sticker, or even in what we call an EVS, Evanston Vehicle Sticker, you would not be able to get one of those parking stickers if your address is at one of the properties. So E2, if somebody from E2 is trying to park in a neighborhood parking district, they will get a ticket. That is not allowed. The plan development explicitly says you cannot get a neighborhood parking sticker. And when people sell parking stickers at the Civic Center, there's a list of these properties next to their desk that say you cannot get a parking. So that language will be baked into this plan development. It's already in their one for link 1.0. And I know personally we have denied parking permits for people in the building, respectfully and kindly, and reminding them that they have parking on site.
So they can park for up to 2 hours, right? It's just anything exceeding 2 hours.
Yes, I suppose they could, but we also have the issues of moving off the block face. But you know, if this is a concern, this is something we can work with the developer and our parking team on to address if we're seeing too much of that.
Well, I know that you don't enforce that all the time, because I'm right here next to E2 and Farmers Market, and you don't give tickets. So just making that comment.
So Tina, if you could let me know, like, and how you know, so that I can just be aware of it as the alderman for this ward. I would like to, you know, when I can zip over so I can observe it. I always get firsthand.
All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you for those points.
Alderman?
Yes.
I had one thought. Understand this comes from my prejudice. I'm a lifelong union member. I know that Chicago Public Schools has reached agreements, I think it's with the Painters Union, where they are giving apprenticeships. Now, it doesn't have to be a school that does this. It could be a town, it could be a business. And this would add union labor to the job and give kids a skill, because not everybody is meant to go to college.
Thank you. That's a great thought. So with that thought in mind, that would be where where CTU, they worked in conjunction, you mean with private developers to do that, or with like city policy?
I think they were working directly with the union. After I retired, but I think it was the Painters Union.
Okay, and the Painters Union worked directly with the private developers to.
No, with the school district.
With the school district to
get these kids a skill.
to help set up apprenticeships. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is something that I guess then that would be something the city could explore. I think that's how that would go. Great, thank you. Let's see. I'm also a proud union member.
Very good.
Let's see. Anybody else here? Questions, comments? No more? Okay, and I had a few other just comments and questions. Let's see. Find this, I'm sorry. Management of the building, and I don't know if we can, I know there've been a lot of concerns about, and I know it's improved a lot, the management lately. We've been on a lot of emails, and I really thank the Sherman Garden residents who've been emailing me about issues of garbage and problems and delivery and noise in the middle of the night. And I also thank the city for jumping in to respond to some of the concerns. It would be nice if we could have some sort of guarantee, and again, in written, not just conversation, regarding management going forward, so that we aren't running into these problems, incredibly time consuming, the emails, the back and forths, and more than that, the time consuming aspect is the residents who endure sometimes a lack in the past, sort of a lack of, I guess, management. So I think something on, and I don't know, Johanna, if that's done, but it would be nice to get something in writing on that going forward also, so we don't see problems returning or being exacerbated by an additional building. Does that happen sometimes where we can include that in agreement to ensure that?
I would have to check in with the law department on that. I mean, generally that's where our property maintenance code kicks in terms of our ability to make sure that people are doing what they say they're supposed to do and what our code says. So let me circle back with the law department and check in with Focus. So.
Great. And I also had a concern, and I don't know if this is a concern to anybody else, so if it's not, let me know. But for a while, you still have that big link sign on the front of the building? Yeah.
There's a sign on the canopy out front that was approved and is there a different sign that we're talking about?
The other one on the west
on the roof
corner.
there.
Yeah. I just feel like that's, is that necessary? And please weigh in, folks, if everybody thinks that big link sign is just great. I don't want to, I personally just feel like it would be a nicer building without big link sign, bright link sign going across the top.
Well, particularly if it weren't lit up, if it didn't, you didn't have to see it all night long, the sign.
Yeah.
Actually, from Sherman Gardens, we get more complaints about the lights from the workout room over the pool or next to the pool than we do for the sign, because they did actually turn the sign wattage down, and it isn't as bright as it used to be. But there's been an ongoing battle. They put up shades to kind of filter any exit lights from the workout rooms, and they don't always get pulled down, and they don't always work as well as they could. But that's something that we've been handling with the management over there, and I think we're getting good results from them.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's really important. I think light pollution is often it's not understood how offensive that can be. And with regard to the link sign, that's just purely aesthetics, like just this big advertising,
right,
as much as the light. So I'm all about the aesthetics of our downtown, making it a beautiful area. So that's where I'd ask if we can reconsider the big, a big advertising sign of the link. I just don't see what that brings to
as a next door neighbor, the trucks delivering to the 7-Eleven in the middle of the night are a much bigger issue than either the sign or the lights from the workout area.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We've been having a huge issue with the trucks and the noise in the middle of the night. And Sherman Garden residents, has that improved?
No, not really. In fact, the other day I got an email from somebody saying that some trucker had parked right in front of our building facing eastbound on Emerson. And so the noise was even closer. It didn't even have the street to buffer it. And we've talked to the management at the 7-Eleven, and there doesn't seem to be any change. Well, I mean, they are legally not required to limit deliveries overnight because that's the way that your city code works. So we don't really have a leg to stand on. All we can ask is that if it's possible, they could limit the deliveries and for sure not let the drivers sit around drinking coffee while their trucks are running out front.
Right, the idling. So what part of this can we regulate, Johanna? I agree. I think it would be really if I were in my apartment and trucks were parked outside making noise and idling, this would be incredibly annoying. What ask?
We can work with the developer to set in the plan development agreement as a special, because it's a special use that.
This isn't going to be an issue with the new development, though. It's an issue with the Link 1.0 and the renter, the 7-Eleven who leases space from California Ventures, who is now managing Link 1.0. So our problem isn't with Focus at all. It's with California Ventures or the management of the building.
Right, but the plan development regulates the delivery hours. It speaks to the delivery hours.
But it's too late to change the delivery hours for Link 1.0 because it's already built.
It's handy that the developer of Link 2.0 is also the developer and owner of Link 1.0. So I would say let's talk to them and work on that.
Anything you could do would definitely be appreciated.
And you're also an actively engaged in a real estate negotiation with them too. I'm not giving you advice, but
yes, I know.
And Diane, this is Dewan Gibson from CA Ventures. I am, even though I am on the development side and on the property management side for Link 1.0, I can attest and I can say right here that I am feverishly writing your notes and comments down so I can articulate those to the property management staff, and it might come a little bit better from internally, not to say that you're not heard right now, but I'm going to make sure that this message is shared with them immediately.
Okay, well, I will tell you that someone named Rachel has been very responsive, but the actual manager of the property, I can't think of her name, has not been. But Rachel, who is apparently the one step up the ladder, has been very helpful in things like getting the snow cleared and getting the garbage picked up.
Yeah, I am aware of those issues as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have a direct line to Rachel as well, and I'll make sure
Great.
She hears that the manager
Well,
is.
I want you to know that she has been terrific. So I have no problems with Rachel, none.
That's great to hear.
Okay, well, that would be great if we can ensure that there's something to help. So to ensure that if we can make that so we don't have trucks idling in the middle of the night. I think there was an issue also with the actual design and the alley in terms of using
correct.
Others,
there
right?
is no loading dock.
Right.
There is no loading dock for the trucks that the trucks can get to. So
that's a problem. Right. That it sounds to me like that something went amiss there in that arrangement. Let's see, Judy.
Yes, I'm wondering if any of their lights on by Link 1.0, the parking area, if they buzz or anything, because I hear a buzzing sometimes at night, especially when it's cold out. No, it's nothing from my building as much as I'm aware, because it sounds different than what comes out of my heating register. So I'm wondering what that is. I know it's outside because I hear it more when I open the window. And it drives me bonkers.
Right, it would drive me bonkers. I don't use
right outside my bedroom window.
I know that there's a transformer right out there that they usually buzz.
Oh no! So my apartment's above a transformer.
There's a pole. Well, and on the above of the pole, there's the transformer that delegates electricity, and that normally has a buzzing sound.
So I just have to learn to deal with that.
So that was installed with the development of the link that particular transformer?
No, there was the existing ComEd line in the alley is it's pole mounted power. What we installed was we pulled power underground and installed 2 ground-mounted transformers right next to the building. So those are there, as well as the existing pole-mounted.
I was asking only because I've never heard it until recently, so I'm like, what is that?
Right, I'm really sorry, Judy, if you have a chance to, it's only at night?
Only at night, usually between 8 p.m. and then after till about 3 or 4 a.m.
Okay,
What about
well,
the
if it's
lights?
possible to, if you can possibly kind of narrow in on where it's coming from, or I can walk over with you and we can see if we can find the source of that.
And it's not every night.
It's not every night. Okay, that's,
It seems to happen when it's cold out. It seems to happen when we have the really cold weather for some reason. Because that's when it happened this last couple times when it was really cold. And it's like I open the window and it's very loud. I close the window, it quiets it down, so I know it's nothing in my apartment. Because I checked all that. I'm like, okay, maybe I have to complain to my property manager. No, because I know my heating vent makes a whistle sound when the hot water goes. I had to ask about that.
okay, well, let's see if we can, let's see if we can zero in on it when it's happening and find out really.
And sometimes that's hard. I have tinnitus in one ear, so it makes it doubly bad.
Right, no, that sounds really frustrating. So if you can, and you know, if you can find somebody to go with you to try to pinpoint the location of the noise, that would be really helpful.
If I hear it again, I will walk around outside because I've never had a problem walking outside at night. I just hope if I'm gonna hear it, I hear it again before if there's any construction vehicles, because I don't want to be around construction vehicles by myself at night.
Right, I understand. Okay, and feel free to reach out to me if you want in the evening, if it's starting at 8, and maybe I can accompany you and we can try to find out together where the noise is coming from.
Yeah, because I know it's behind my building. I know it's not in the building.
No, I hear you. It sounds like something new. So we'll try to figure that one out. That does sound frustrating. We'll hopefully get to the bottom of
Frustrating
that.
because if it's the transformer, why didn't it always do that?
Right, exactly. No, it sounds, so that's why we'll try to pinpoint it so it can be addressed.
And I know it's not a truck because there's no truck in the alley at that time, usually.
Right. Okay, and gentlemen from Focus, any thoughts on what that might be if it's related to cold weather and there's a buzz?
I don't know. My guess would be is it's a transformer that's pretty close to the building that's not related to, but the fact of the matter is, frankly, I live 5 minutes from the site. So like if it does get pinpointed, I'm happy to come out there and take a look at it.
Great, thank you. Okay, that would be great. And let's see, Tina, did you have another comment or question?
Yes. So maybe, I don't know if Johanna can answer this or if there's any other city people. What is the garbage dumpster requirement per units or building? I know that there's a lot of rats going on here, and it just doesn't seem to be with these big buildings enough garbage dumpsters. And what happens is, I know at some of my property, what happens is the larger buildings don't have enough garbage cans, and their tenants come and throw their stuff in my garbage can. So it's a lot of fly dumping happening because of that. And then the city wants to give me a ticket. So I would like to know, what is the garbage dumpster requirement for size of the building?
I was trying to pull up the see if I can find the code fast enough. Oh, here, okay. 308.3 garbage and rubbish services for multifamily unit residential buildings. The owner of every occupied building with more than 4 dwelling and or rooming units shall provide each week minimum proper container or dumpster capacity capable of holding not less than the volume indicated by the following: 0.25 cubic yards per dwelling unit, 0.10 cubic yard uncompacted per rooming unit. So that it is in our code. If they don't provide it, they would get a citation. And but I would anticipate that they would want to provide it. Sometimes it just ends up being the path of the receptacle and where the resident is going does not align. And sometimes we have to work to course correct that a little bit with tenants and some education. So if there's some concerns, I think you have the team in place and they'll probably look into some of this to see if there are some issues.
Well, I know that a lot of the larger buildings do not have enough I mean, I have pictures, especially over E2, they're all flowing over, and it's the rat problem is kind of bad now.
Well,
Also,
Tina, I'll send somebody over there to check it out. And if you have any pictures you want to share, I'm happy to add those to that request. So send me an email, please.
okay. Also, during construction, I don't can't speak for the people at Sherman Garden. I wanted to know from the developer, will you have proper shielding? So what I mean by that is the building that was recently constructed by me, the Truly, when they were doing the construction, they did not put up, seem like proper plastic or whatever, and all the debris came over to my house. It was just horrible. I was so glad they finished that building. I had construction debris on my car, on the house and everything. And do you have something in place that will ensure that this debris is not flying all over the residents in the area?
Yes, I'm sorry. As part of the logistics plan, we have to put up construction fencing with wind barriers. The dumpsters go behind it, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there's a plan. I'd be lying if I said that occasionally construction debris doesn't get blown around in a construction site, and we're not perfect, but there certainly is a plan, and it's certainly something we'll write down as a concern and deal with it.
I can also attest to the fact that during Link 1.0, if there was garbage that got beyond the property, that the workmen would come over and pick it up. The
Rich?
Construction manager, yeah, Rich, he was great. And I had his phone number. And if we had a problem of any kind, he would respond immediately. So I can't say enough about focus as far as being a good neighbor and during construction.
Great, thank you. There's a I know this is very preliminary, so I assume the fire department hasn't really reviewed these plans yet, or have they, to really assess alleyways and access?
The only staff that's reviewed this is Melissa Klotz, because they just submitted their zoning analysis. So once they submit their plan development application, taking the comments that they're getting tonight, put that into the plan development application, that will be distributed to multiple departments across the city: fire, police, and public works, city manager, sustainability coordinator, economic development, just about everybody who touches any kind of piece of the development, sewer, water. They will review, provide comments back. We will give those comments to the development team. They may make some additional changes. And then this project will be in front of the design and project review committee, which in Evanston is a open staff meeting where we review the project and discuss it and get questions answered. And then it would go on to the land use commission from there at a certain point. But we don't even have an application yet. We can't make those. I can't give a sense of what the timing is from today.
And Johanna, would we, in terms of the housing authority considering or working on getting approval to build, or I guess they got to build in the parking lot there, do we as a city, do we work with developers to have some staggering in terms of, because I can't even imagine having both, like the construction of those two massive buildings.
Sure.
I mean, one is a lot.
Yeah, so I put in the chat the construction management plan for the Avador building, which is kind of a kitty corner over the tracks, and the Truly building were both kind of slated to be starting at the same time. If anyone remembers, they were literally going to be breaking ground within a few weeks. They ultimately did not break ground. It was one finished and then one more or less was starting. So it's hard to tell, but we did have some joint construction management meetings with both teams, and we actually had a neighborhood meeting with both construction teams with members of the community present for that meeting as well, to talk about kind of coordination and other things that people could expect. So
Right,
it
'cause I
would be
get-
less than ideal if they were going on at the same time, but we would certainly, we would have experienced development teams working that have worked in tight spaces before. So
Yeah, I would hope that we would, I mean, I would like to look at possibly having some sort of an ordinance that would ensure that within a certain amount of space, we don't have so much construction going up at the same time. It just feels like for safety and everything and quality of living that.
well, we won't do it if it's unsafe. We won't do anything that's unsafe. But the feedback we did get at that community meeting was that people were actually happy that they would be doing the construction at the same time, because you wouldn't have 2 years, 3 years of construction. You might just have 18 months. So in some ways there is a benefit to having them do it at the same time.
Okay, all right, point well taken. Okay, great. Let's see. Tina, do you have another question?
Yeah, so you mentioned the fire department. So I would like to know, and the city might have to think about this. There's going to be a lot more people with these buildings, not just particularly this building. And this is weighing heavy on the fire and police department. And as you'll remember, in the recent past, we were even considering closing one of our fire department stations. And it seems that maybe the city needs to make some kind of public benefit, a requirement of these new developments to contribute to additional police and fire to ensure that we will not have any shutdowns. And it's very important that we are safe here in the city of Evanston. And just for instance, the incident that did happen here at the link, as you'll remember that day, all day and very well into the evening, the police and fire were there blocking up traffic. And if there's another emergency across town, they may not be able to handle such an event because there's catastrophic things happening. So it seems that we need to have a requirement that new developments put in some funding for additional police and fire, because you're adding 228 units, which is a lot of people. And then you already have the other building, 16 stories with similar occupancy. And look at how many people you have in just one block. And does not include Sherman Gardens that is already there, as well as all of the other apartment buildings that are on the same block. So it seems that we should not hold the bag of adding more fire and police department funds to acquire these new necessities for our city.
Councilmember Kelly, can I just let everyone know one small nugget of information? Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that comment. I would just make sure everyone knows that the city of Evanston is part of MABUS, which is the mutual aid box alarm system. So in the event that we have our police and fire are dealing with something, we pull in resources from adjacent communities. So I believe on that pretty horrible day, there were other communities that joined the response. This ensures that we are covered. We cover other communities. This is how this works in this part of the county. So we would rest assured we would be covered. We would have somebody responding to 911. We would not be missing that. I don't want anyone on this call to think that that's not going to happen.
No, I hear you, Johanna, but if you'll remember, station number 4 was going to close. And this is very important, that if people are building this many units, we've been letting people get away with murder here in Evanston, and we're just getting the short end of the stick. And then we end up having to not be, the citizens have to end up being responsible. then they'll say, well, it's not in the budget, cut it out. And that's what you were planning on for station number 4. That was just a few years ago. So we should make sure that we don't always have to call Skokie and Wilmette. I understand if it's a big emergency, but I'm talking about daily traffic. And I'm very close to station number 1, who has probably the most calls here in Evanston. And mind you, that we also, because you all do not require Northwestern to have their own police and fire on campus, that we have to also share with them too at our expense. And giving an ambulance or a fire truck every once in a while is not adequate. So we should not be holding the bag here as residents and start requiring these developers to make our city better, not build something and then go away and we have to clean up the mess. So it's very important that you understand and remember that you were going to close station number 4 just a few years ago. Thank you.
You're on mute, Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. I was just saying, I agree. I think it's really important that we do thoroughly assess the impact on our public services when we do have developments of hundreds and hundreds of units. And I think we need to do a better job of that. Any other questions or comments? So, and I just want to reiterate again about the garage itself, which I think, you know, if this can increase the quality of life at Sherman Gardens, great. I would just ask that if you know, providing you go forward with that, that we do everything we can to sort of minimize any kind of warehousey look about the parking place, give it dimension of any sorts. I know you're trying to make it work with the architecture of the Sherman Gardens, but I think if we could do a little more to, again, make it feel a little bit less like warehouse. And, you know, if Rooftop Gardens, although I think the gentleman who spoke, was it Keith, to the expense of the rooftop, but Sherman Gardens wouldn't be paying for that, right?
It was Jim, I think.
Right, so I don't know. So I'm just wondering. So if you're not footing the bill, Jim.
No, I had quite a different point actually about not needing a garage at all.
Okay. Yeah, and then there's that too. So I would absolutely encourage like that, just to have that explored, and potentially more open space or open space and garage, just whatever to make that area as lovely and inviting as possible for the Sherman Garden residents, as well as the rest of Evanston. That strip, again, when you're looking at it from the west, could use some help. So if there is any way to, you know, add some elements to that design, you know, murals are nice, but I don't think does it. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? So this is recorded and it will be, Johanna, right, it will probably take about sometime next week. We should have this up on a YouTube so you can revisit this. I would love if we could have another community meeting at some point after these ideas are visited again. I think the more that the community is participating in these decisions, especially for such a large development, the more smoothly and happily we'll all go forward with it. So if we could circle back at some point, that would be great. Sooner than later.
Sounds like a plan.
Terrific. Thank you. And thank you, Johanna and Melissa, for helping out this evening. Really appreciate it. And make sure, if you haven't already, I imagine everybody here is subscribed to the First Ward newsletter when I send out these invitations. If not, please go to you just do City of Evanston City Council member and subscribe to that to get the notifications and reminders for these meetings. I think that's it. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.